Hello, you absolute legends. I love speedrunning, but I'll be the first to admit it's an obscure hobby. And dare I say it, it's possibly even a little bit weird. But speedrunning's obscurity pales in comparison to the wonderful world of blindfolded gaming. Its very premise seems to run counter to the core purpose of video games. I mean, the word video relates to the act of seeing, so taking away the one faculty the entire activity is centered around doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But I guess that's the point. Speedrunners love to create challenges for themselves, and as far as video games are concerned, it's pretty tough to find a challenge greater than beating them without the ability to see. The feats blindfolded gamers are achieving seem to be getting crazier and crazier, culminating in one of the more interesting things I've ever seen. In the most recent Awesome Games Done Quick marathon, 2 speedrunners using a single controller managed to beat Mike Tyson's Punch-Out without losing a single fight. Apparently this had never been achieved before, so to pull it off in a live setting with over 100,000 people watching is pretty incredible. I am definitely not an expert on blindfolded gaming, but this achievement inspired me to give it a closer look, and I must say, some of these runs are mind-blowing. You could craft an amazing YouTube channel dedicated solely to explaining blindfolded runs. While many of these runs do go viral and get a decent amount of attention, we still don't know much about the work that goes into them or the methods they use. Hopefully I can learn enough about them to cover them in more depth in the future. In the meantime, I'd like to go over some noteworthy runs that are simply awesome to watch. I really hope you enjoy. Guys, you will never guess who is sponsoring this video. I couldn't believe it when they reached out to me. The one and only Raid Shadow Legends has handpicked my channel. They are extremely selective with who they sponsor, so this is a big deal. Now, when Raid came to me last year, I decided to play the game because I didn't want to do a sponsor for a game that I don't play. And truthfully, I really enjoy this game and I've played it almost every day for the past 4 months. Now, it gives you the option of having your champions fight automatically and make their own decisions, which is perfect for me because I'm otherwise too busy to play a game that needs my full attention. So with Raid, I can just have it open next to me while I write and edit videos. I am still working on making my clan as powerful as I can, and there is some room available now, so it'd be awesome if I had a few more of you guys join up. I'm on there all the time, so it's a good way to chat with me and other guys from the community. It's free. It's a turn-based RPG. There are over 400 champions to collect, and if you use the link in my description, you'll get 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program. I'll see you there. The first thing I was curious about when it came to blindfolded gaming was, where did it all begin? I did a pretty thorough search and nothing definitive came up, but believe it or not, the first mention of playing a video game without looking may actually be from none other than Mr. Activision himself, Todd Rogers. I don't believe most of what Todd Rogers claims, but he has talked about playing video games without looking at the TV for a long time, and we even have footage of him doing it. Sure, Dragster is a really simple game, and so is most of those old console and arcade games, but if those old school players were anything like speedrunners today, they were almost certainly demonstrating their prowess by playing without looking. In 2007, a YouTube user by the name of Genuine's Corruption, real name Jordan, uploaded a video of himself playing Twilight Princess blindfolded. Though, truth be told, the blindfold was a bit redundant in this case, as he was already blind from birth. A year earlier, Jordan had posted a message on the Speed Demos Archives forums asking for help to beat Ocarina of Time. The responses were initially less than favorable, with people doubting Jordan's story, even straight up saying they don't believe a blind person could play the game, which definitely hasn't aged well given what players have been able to accomplish nowadays. Helpful players did eventually make their way into the topic though, and Jordan began posting videos of beating various dungeons. This is first and foremost amazing and an inspiration, but it also went on to inspire existing speedrunners. Of particular importance was a speedrunner known as RunnerGuy2489. In 2008, he began the long journey of conquering Ocarina of Time in its entirety, a journey that would end up taking 6 years to complete. Honestly, it's pretty commendable how committed some of these early blindfolded players were, given how grand and complex a game like Ocarina of Time is. Going into it, you wouldn't even know if it were possible. Blindfolded gaming really started to take off in 2010 after it was demonstrated in the Classic Games Done Quick marathon. Here, Andrew G attempted to get as far as he could in Super Mario Bros. At the time it was just a fun challenge with no preparation, but the idea itself definitely sparked interest in the concept. Over the years, Games Done Quick has continued to shine a light on the obscure challenge, and increased its popularity dramatically. Some of the more notable games that seem to be crowd favorites in these marathons are those in the Punch-Out franchise. Summoning Salt made a great video covering blindfolded Punch-Out, so check that out if you haven't already. As I mentioned earlier, the demonstrations just keep getting more and more complex as the years go on. In AGDQ 2020, Zallard 1 and Sinister 1 shared a single controller in order to perform a perfect 14-0 sweep of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
They didn't think they'd do it.
They didn't think
But
they'd
they
do it.
did it.
Give it up!
It's always epic to see people do something that far exceeds any of their previous attempts in a marathon setting like this. It reminds me of the Mexican runner's deathless run of Battletoads Turbo Tunnel in 2018.
You must be fucking kidding me! Ah! Ah! Ah!
Again, something that had never been done in all of his previous attempts. I really don't understand how people do it. I've played in front of a live audience before and the pressure is intense. The fact that anyone can perform well under these conditions is so impressive to me. One of my favorite blindfolded runs is of the original Super Mario Bros. This has been completed by a single person, a Japanese runner by the name of Dodai2525. He completed it in a time of 14 minutes and 31 seconds on the 27th of January 2016. There are so many things that make this run magical. To begin with, it is insanely difficult with many of the setups relying on pure timing alone. With a lot of games you can figure out a string of inputs that puts you in the right position, but that's not really possible in Super Mario Bros. A lot of the time you can hear him counting aloud in order to press inputs at the right time.
始めてみましょうホップステップチャップきらめきらりずっとちゅっと地球で輝く光きらびきらりを音をワッと私を私と呼びたいときめきらりやばい低すぎたさっき0 1 2 3 4
Timing things in this way is one of the more difficult techniques you can use in order to navigate without sight. And given that this method is used so many times throughout the run, it is mental that he managed to get through. Obviously, a ton of work went into figuring everything out, and it seems to be something that he worked on mostly in isolation. One of the features that make this run a bit more difficult is the timer, which forces you to get through levels a little bit quicker than you'd like to. 8-3 had an insane end, finishing with 0 time left on the clock. He must have had barely a frame to spare. ときめきおおThe movement of some of the enemies will change each run as well, making it even more difficult. The reaction from Dodai is priceless and perfectly demonstrates how much effort he must have put into the run. 012345678いけ Now, I do understand why some people might see a reaction like that and think it's overblown, but I can assure you that reaction is not just a response to beating the game blindfolded. This is a person who had a vision of something that had never been done before. They had to put in months of work to figure out how to make it possible, and then manifest that into a physical reality, which is anything but easy. It really doesn't matter what your goal is. If you have a vision and work hard to accomplish it, you're going to have a response, especially if a precedent doesn't already exist. The run has over 300,000 views, but honestly I'm surprised it doesn't have millions. Definitely give this one a watch. Another group of ridiculous blindfolded runs are the ones that go on for an inordinate amount of time. I should probably mention that in order for a blindfolded run to count as complete, you are not allowed to take off the blindfold at any point. So for really long runs, you also have to deal with the fact that you're probably not going to get up or go to the bathroom for a very long time. One of the blindfold specialists is a runner by the name of Cartoon24, and he has some insane completions. He beat The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time without glitches in just under 17 hours. Yes, that is 17 hours with no breaks. He also performed a 102% completion of Donkey Kong Country 2 in just over 16 hours. In order to do runs of this length, you need some serious resolve. I actually don't get how people can do it. Now, I am sure that after some practice you can get somewhat acclimated to it, but I don't think you could ever get comfortable with being blindfolded for 16 hours without a predisposition to withstanding harsh conditions. I probably couldn't go more than 4 hours without needing to get up or take the blindfold off, but I'm sure even those 4 hours would be hell. Cartoon has also completed some other incredible shorter runs, like Celeste in 3 hours and 8 minutes. And Super Mario 64 70 Star in 2 hours and 18 minutes. There are so many creative strategies involved. It's really awesome to watch. Memorizing all of the movements and setups must require so much work. And speaking of memorization, one of the crazier examples of blindfolded gaming is Guitar Hero. Now, I actually play guitar, and one thing that I've gotten asked a few times in the past is how I remember lengthy songs, especially the more complicated ones. In my experience, and I'm sure the same applies to anyone else who plays music, the more you play an instrument, the easier it becomes to learn and remember new material. This would be partly due to the fact that the same notes will always be played in the same location. So after a while, your brain naturally understands where things will be, even if you've never learned a particular song before, just based on how it sounds. But Guitar Hero is different than real guitar in that there are only 5 buttons, so it's impossible for each button to represent the same note every time. This makes it far more difficult to remember an entire song. I really hope these Guitar Hero players also play real music, because the finger dexterity you need to 100% these difficult songs would cross over so well to real instruments. There are plenty of examples of great blindfolded conquests, but in this video I just wanted to scratch the surface and give you a little taste of what's out there. In the description I'm going to link a spreadsheet that contains an exhaustive list of every game beaten with a blindfold, as well as segmented runs and partial runs. I strongly recommend you give this list a browse and check out some of those runs. Earlier, I mentioned Jordan, the blind player who originally set out to beat Ocarina of Time, but there are also a slew of other blind gamers figuring out impressive ways to play games. So if you want to feel inspired and even a bit more grateful for being able to enjoy video games in the way you do, I'd recommend searching some of those out. If you are interested or not interested in seeing some blindfolded runs covered on this channel in more depth, let me know in the comments. Until then, you are a bunch of legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.